false equivalency going on in the coverage of this race.
Their objectivity actually is not objective at all. It ends up playing to Donald Trump's advantage every day.
In an effort to appear balanced, to appear objective, mistakes are absolutely being made and standards are being applied to both candidates here when Donald Trump is a different animal. He is an insurrectionist.
Hey, welcome back. It's your man Wise, and we've got some spicy-ish to get into today. We're talking about Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks, who is taking shots at none other than MSDNC's Morning Joe crew. Specifically, she's calling out their absurd segment where they basically say, you're not allowed to criticize Kamala Harris. You're only allowed to go after Trump. You heard that right. You're only allowed to slam the evil orange man and no one else because he's apparently a threat to democracy, an insurrectionist. Really? Cut it out. So replacing the guy who received millions of votes as their Democratic presidential candidate with a woman who didn't win a single vote in this primary and definitely not in 2020 is how you save democracy. Yeah, okay. I'm not having it, and neither is Anna.
Well, the crew over at Morning Joe on MSNBC, you know, the same crew that wanted Biden to continue running in this presidential race despite the fact that he was suffering from clear cognitive decline. Yeah, those people. They're furious that journalists would have the audacity of ever reporting anything negative on the Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris, because Trump is he's a special threat. And so since they've decided that Trump is a very special threat, well, then journalists should hide information about Kamala Harris from you so you don't vote for Trump and definitely vote for Kamala Harris. In other words, they want the media to manipulate you and do the exact opposite of journalism. Don't believe me? Well, why don't we hear co-host Mike Barnicle make his case?
But there's a false equivalency going on in the coverage of this race, in that Donald Trump can say whatever crazy things he wants to say about submarines and sharks and electric batteries, whatever he wants to say. And it's not really covered in the sense that it's covered describing who said it, why he said it, and who the man is, Trump, out of his mind. And always in that story, in the equivalency, the false equivalency by too many reporters and too many American newspapers, there's also, by the way, Kamala Harris changed her mind on fracking. They always throw in something like that.
You know, I don't think Anna's the only one who's fed up with how the liberal media refuses to criticize Kamala. They really think it's okay to keep you in the dark about Kamala's record and her flip-flopping because, well, orange man bad. And Mike Barnicle's take on this, saying there's this false equivalency in how the media is covering this race. It is, but I don't think it's the way that he's presenting it. When Kamala changes her mind, oh no, we can't talk about that. That's not important. Like, excuse me? Last time I checked, voters deserve to know where candidates stand on key issues, but not according to them. MSDNC basically admits that the Democrat Party, which at this point is almost indistinguishable from a tyrannical regime, that it wants to suppress criticism of it. It's so rare that the liberal media even tries to do their job and hold someone like Harris accountable. So when they do, people like Joe Scarborough and this Mike Barnicle character completely lose their mind. And Anna's got a point there at the end. Are they basically admitting that if they did cover Kamala fairly, no one would vote for her? Because it seems like that's exactly what they're saying.
The fact that we didn't try to manipulate audiences and we didn't try to lie to people or cover up the truth about our preferred candidates or preferred politicians. We didn't want to stoop low and do what the right wing was doing with their misinformation, with the fact that they would omit incredibly relevant, important parts of the story in order to make Republicans look good and Democrats look bad. And now we're in this awful era of conditioning audiences and readers to expect journalists to cheerlead like partisan hacks for one candidate or the other. And if you don't do it, if you don't engage in it, they get mad at you. You're supposed to be my cheerleader. You're supposed to cheerlead for my preferred candidate. What are you doing? How dare you talk about Kamala Harris and how she went from being against fracking to now saying she's totally in favor of fracking? How dare you? The media doesn't fearmonger about Trump enough? Has he considered that maybe, just maybe, the media had been fear-mongering about Trump so much, so often, that Americans have become desensitized to it? Has he considered that? Has he considered the fact that Joe Biden ran his campaign almost entirely on Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, and it wasn't working? Why do you think it wasn't working? This is the most brain-dead argument I have heard on MSNBC, and that is saying something, because there are a lot of brain-dead arguments made on MSNBC.
Here's the thing. It's not about Kamala versus Trump or Republicans versus Democrats. It's about the larger strategy the media is using to manipulate voters. They want you to vote against Trump, not for someone who actually stands for something. And that's what's driving Anna nuts. And to be honest with you, that's what's driving me nuts in this process. She realized, though, that when you paint Trump as the ultimate villain, like literally comparing him to Hitler, it allows the Democrats to run anyone. Any old body can run against President Trump in their eyes, because they'll run out anybody, no matter how unqualified or out of touch they are, just because they're not Trump. It's the most cynical, manipulative strategy I've ever seen. It's ridiculous.
That's not a time to say, well, how does it, but again, we see it time and time again. For some reason, the mainstream media, what are we, 9 years in to Donald Trump's era in American politics, still doesn't know how to cover Donald Trump. Their objectivity actually is not objective at all. It ends up playing to Donald Trump's advantage.
Don't be objective because it plays to Donald Trump's advantage. Why? Because journalists want to answer a question about how Kamala Harris would handle Afghanistan, what her views on Afghanistan happen to be. Do the American voters have the right to know where Kamala Harris stands on those issues? Or should we be kept in the dark because Trump bad? Trump bad. That's what Joe Scarborough wants. He wants journalists to line up and say in unison over and over again, Trump bad, because that's been real effective, right? Listen, he wants to be a cheerleader for one side. That's great, go be a cheerleader for one side. But don't sit there on your boring ass morning show where you try to gaslight the American public about Biden's mental health and pass judgment on people who are trying to get Kamala Harris to answer questions on something amazing, policy, where she stands on policy. Because there are voters out there, believe it or not, who aren't partisan hacks. Those are the individuals who actually end up deciding elections. And they want to know where Kamala Harris stands on policy.
Wow, Anna is on fire. Let's not forget, just a few months ago, Morning Joe and his crew over at MSDNC were still trying to convince us that Joe Biden was perfectly fine to run again, despite his obvious cognitive decline. They gaslighted us for years, and now they're furious that any journalist would dare question Kamala. And the problem here is that the Democrats are putting all their chips on Kamala, and it's not working. So they're doubling down. Voters don't want a candidate who's just not Trump. What's more important to them is someone who stands for something, and Kamala's definitely not that person. You hear them talking about how this campaign's about joy, but like, what is she gonna do for the American people? The whole kumbaya thing gets old quickly, and they're sitting there scratching their heads, asking why she's not doing great in the polls right now. So then what do? Lie. That's basically what Morning Joe is saying. Don't report the truth because it helps Trump. And you know what? It's not working anymore. But these leftists in the media wonder why no one trusts them anymore. Well, maybe it's because they've been so blatantly biased for so long that they've completely destroyed any credibility they once had.
So there was a piece out in the New York Times today that I think you should all read. And it was titled, "Left-Wing Misinformation is Having a Moment. America's Right Flank Remains the Chief Purveyor of Misinformation, but this summer's political tumult created ideal conditions for falsehoods to spread among progressives." So let's just quickly focus on the Trump assassination attempt, where Joy Reid, an MSNBC host with more than 340,000 followers on Threads, raised questions about Trump's injury from the shooting. Doubts that some of her followers interpreted when his medical details were not released as implying a cover-up. Then you also had that Brooklyn Dad Defiant guy on X who has more than 1.3 million followers. he amplified such suspicions by offering his own doubts about Trump's injury. Yeah, the FBI confirmed that Trump got shot in the ear. Okay, like it's confirmed by the FBI. Like, who are we? Really, we're gonna play this game where we engage in conspiracy theories? Like, on one hand, criticize the right wing for engaging in conspiracy theories as we engage in conspiracy theories? I think it's pretty gross. But there's other stuff. And like, I hesitate to even bring this up because people are hell-bent on being scared about Project 2025. But let me just be clear about something. There are all sorts of allegations about the Heritage Foundation's document, which again, they release every election cycle. This is the first time we have the Democratic Party specifically tying it to Donald Trump, because some of the people associated with the Heritage Foundation used to be in Trump's administration. Okay, does that mean that Trump is, you think Trump respects anyone who was in his administration? But okay, let's talk about the specific allegations that we've heard about what's in Project 2025, which is a 900-page document. The media knows that most Americans, they don't have the bandwidth to sit down and read a 900-page document. So they get to say whatever they want about it. They get to claim that it includes all sorts of things that it doesn't even actually say. So for instance, Vice President Harris said on July 23rd that Project 2025 called for cutting Social Security. It was not a one-time mistake. She also said at a July 11th, 2024 campaign event, Project 2025 includes a plan to cut Social Security. Well, NewsGuard, which does a pretty good job in fact-checking these types of claims on both sides, took a look and they found out that the Project 2025 policy playbook titled Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, does not even mention any proposed changes to Social Security. Okay, great. Left-leaning news outlet, thegrio.com, advanced the myth that Project 2025 proposes banning Muslims. The mandate for leadership includes no mention of a Muslim ban or any religion or ethnicity-specific entry ban.
Don't ever let them gaslight you into thinking that the right is the main and only purveyor of so-called misinformation and disinformation. I gotta give it to Anna though. I gotta give her credit for calling out the left's own lies. Not an easy thing to do, even though I don't think for a second that she's fully bought in to the MAGA side, she's fully bought into MAGA, or I also don't think that she's gonna vote for Trump, but I respect that she keeps trying to be honest and genuine. And at the end of the day, I hope we can all agree on the need for real factual journalism, whether it's Republicans or Democrats. Political theater and misinformation are damaging. We need genuine fact-based reporting to keep our republic functioning. Without it, we're lost. That's my take though. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you drop a comment. I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys. Consider joining the ARP family. It supports me, the team, the channel. It gives us the ability to do what we do on a day-to-day basis. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.